When these Silmarils were forged by the great elven smith Feanor, they were, from the very beginning, recognized as the most beautiful objects in the world. The Silmarils were admired so much, in fact, that Varda, the Queen of the Stars, hallowed them, and from then on, no evil could ever touch these sacred gems without being burned. Melkor was there when these Silmarils were crafted, and he admired their beauty greatly, so much in fact that he pursued them greedily within his heart, and when his plans for revenge against the Valar unfolded, and he, alongside the great spider Ungoliant, defiled the two trees, Melkor took his opportunity. He slayed Feanor's father, the King Finwë, and raided the treasury, stealing the great gems of Valinor and, alongside them, the greatest of them all. Melkor was thus named by the elves Morgoth, the black foe of the world, and he fled for Middle-earth with his new treasures. The House of Feanor would not stand for this injustice, and they swore to claim back the Silmarils regardless of the cost, leading to the famous kinslayings. Upon their return to Beleriand, the ever-starving for more Ungoliant turned on the Dark Lord, and she demanded the Silmarils. She was nearly successful too, until with a great cry Morgoth summoned his Balrogs, and they all fought the spider together. They managed to flee, but this was too close for the Dark Lord's liking. The Silmarils had almost been lost. He and his host swiftly returned to the dark fortress of Angband, and there, in the year of the trees 1495, Morgoth forged for himself a great crown of iron, and he called himself King of the World. In token of this, he set the Silmarils in his crown. His hands were burned black by the touch of those hallowed jewels, and black they remained ever after, nor was he ever free from the pain of the burning, and the anger of the pain. The crown he never took from his head, though its weight became a deadly weariness. Morgoth, so consumed by his hate and his anger, would not care about the unimaginable pain and suffering inflicted from his hubris, and he wore his dreadful iron crown at all times, forever paranoid that his enemies would attempt to steal his beloved Silmarils. Although a burden, he wore the Silmarils atop his iron crown for centuries, and his enemies would witness the true horror of what had been done to the pure and perfect gems once they witnessed the Dark Lord come himself out of Angband. With his defeat in the Battle of the Siren Flame, the mighty elven king Fingolfin marched to the Dark Fortress. Thus he came alone to Angband's gates, and he sounded his horn, and smote once more upon the brazen doors, and challenged Morgoth to come forth to single combat. And Morgoth came. The Dark Lord marched out of Angband with his iron crown and Silmarils atop his head, clad in his black armor like a tower, and with his massive shield on one hand, while, on the other, the dreaded Grond, the hammer of the underworld. Fingolfin was crushed under the Dark Lord's feet, though not without managing to injure him 7 times, with wounds that apparently would never heal. Eventually, a certain baron would embark upon a quest with the purpose of finally being permitted to marry his beloved Luthien, a quest deemed impossible by all. He was to steal a Silmaril located atop the head of the most dangerous creature in the world, and set within his iron crown. Luthien Tinuviel, having coming the assistance of her beloved, was able, with her powers, to lull the towering lord to sleep, and as the entirety of his dark court was in slumber, Beren took his opportunity. But the Silmarils in the crown of Morgoth's head blazed forth suddenly with a radiance of white flame, and the burden of that crown and of the jewels bowed down his head, as though the world were set upon it, laden with a weight of care, of fear, and of desire, that even the will of Morgoth could not support. Suddenly he fell, as a hill sliding in avalanche, and hurled like thunder from his throne, lay prone upon the floors of hell. The iron crown rolled, echoing from his head. All things were still. As a dead beast, Beren lay upon the ground, but Luthien, touching him with her hand, aroused him, and he cast aside the Wulfheim. Then he drew forth the knife Angrist, and from the iron claws that held it, he cut a Silmaril. Before Beren was able to cut a second out of the iron crown, his knife gave in, and the Dark Lord arose. The two fled and would embark on a story of their own, but for now, Morgoth's crown would only hold 2 Silmarils. Morgoth, enraged, waged war against the Free Peoples, and his victory was almost complete conquering nigh the entirety of Beleriand, as well as finding and destroying the hidden city of Gondolin. With Middle-earth in such peril, Eärendil sailed to Valinor, though it was not allowed, and he begged the Valar for help and for forgiveness. The Valar obliged, and though they themselves did not participate, they sent forth the host of the West and the great eagles, accompanied by Eärendil atop his flying ship Vinguland. After all of the death, the fire and the destruction, the blooded forces of good were finally victorious. They toppled the gates of Angband and they searched deep within its dungeons, and they seized the Dark Lord, previously the greatest among them, hurling him on his face into the ground. Morgoth was taken captive to the west and was bound with a great chain Angenor, which had been fashioned by Aulu the Smith when he was first held captive following his original defeat. Before being exiled from Arda, however, and thrown as his punishment into the timeless void outside of existence, the Valar decided one last punishment, in addition to the pre-existing chain. Knowing the pride of the fallen Dark Lord, they took his iron crown, which had its Silmarils removed, and they fashioned it into an iron collar that was bound around his neck as a mark of humiliation, a way for him to remember all that he had done as he served his punishment within the void. Thus, the Iron Crown, which had previously served as a symbol of fear for his enemies, and which had marked his declaration as King of the World, was used against him, now the King of Nothing. According to the second prophecy of Mandos, which foretells of the final battle that will remake the world, the Dagor Dagorath, the Dark Lord will manage to break through the Door of Night, guarded by Eärendil himself. He will destroy the sun and the moon, and he will wreak havoc in the world, until the Black Sword of Túrin himself deals him the death blow. Although the Iron Crown or collar is not mentioned explicitly by Tolkien, it can be assumed that it was either destroyed following Morgoth's defeat, or perhaps snapped by the Dark Lord himself following his escape. Nonetheless, the Silmarils would be recovered from the air, the sea and the earth, and the world shall be remade, though the gems will never again be placed atop the Iron Crown that they had called home for centuries. A massive thank you to my channel members, and thank you very much for watching.